Hey Faith Family, welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast at Calvary Bible, where we go beyond the Sunday sermon to explore some rabbit holes and to bring some biblical truths to the surface. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Calvary Bible Church, welcome back to Joke Time with Randall and Jonathan.
Probably Jonathan should go first in that lineup.
You ready? Don't look at my, it's actually
Unfortunately.
not even on my cheat sheet here.
I'm so bad at jokes that even if I saw the answer, I wouldn't get it right.
That'd be bad. You can read
sad.
it. Why are computers so smart?
Well, because the users are idiots.
It's a seasonal joke. Sometimes we bring these. This one was fed to me, though.
Okay.
Because they always listen to the motherboard.
Ah, Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Happy belated Mother's Day.
That's a good one.
To all of our mothers out there.
Well, I wouldn't have got that one.
Mrs. Pelton, not the Michelle version. That was for you.
My mom
Your
will
mom.
love my mom.
She's probably very
She loves
disappointed
those
that you
jokes.
didn't get this.
She is very disappointed in me.
He didn't even get his own
Regularly.
Mother's Day.
Yeah. So she's used to it. Trust me.
That's great. All right. I've got a list of them now. I've got a long list of jokes piled up.
All right.
My daughter, Anna, now
Oh,
is feeding me jokes.
bless her heart.
So I've got two
Wow.
joke feeders in my family.
Wow.
You know, you raise your children right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's how it comes. That's how
Yep.
it works. But for today, we're in Psalm 99. You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad to shift to the Bible.
Psalm 99. It's not even a hard shift. You know, the Lord has a sense of humor.
He does. Because he lets folks like you and me
Yeah.
do some soul
Bumble
watching.
our way through stuff.
Yeah.
How to pray, how to praise.
Mm-hmm.
Series in the Psalms 99. This week, praising our God who loves justice but also forgives. And so we talked about some things that we've got some questions on. Let me start off in verse 5. So question came in, and I'll read verse 5. Exalt the Lord our God.
Mm-hmm.
Worship at his footstool.
Mm-hmm.
Holy is he.
Mm-hmm.
So just a personal question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bow or posture your life in a way that exalts God? Can you give any personal examples of how you practice that in your life? Mm-hmm. So I remember, we're talking about being at the footstool or bowing, and you said that posture, is it the word exalt equals bow?
Mm-hmm. The normal word for worship.
Oh.
Yeah.
So to bow, we don't go through our life, looking down all the time. That wouldn't be the point, but a heart bowing or heart posture.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious from your life, how do you practically think, I am bowing today, or this is an act of...
I do think that, when I think about posture issues for me in prayer, times of kneeling are still significant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it all the time, but it's significant.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I do that, I am conscious about where I keep my nose. And this comes from way back from some illustrations that I've thought of in the past. But I think the keeping my head bowed is important, as just letting me know I am below you, Lord, physically, and I want to show that. But it depends on the type of prayer too. So for instance, looking up, I don't raise my hands often, but the gesture of looking up and having an openness to receive from the Lord, or looking up, is still a sense of He's there, not that I'm up to His level, but a raising of my nose then is because of acknowledging His highness. And so that would be some more posture issues. A lot of times, bending at the waist is a part of it. Covering my face with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle has seen this often, using the brim or the bill of my baseball cap,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm not wearing it, but I'm actually using it to shield my eyes. Things like that would be some of the posture
Mm-hmm.
types of things.
Yeah.
Reading the Psalms, and you probably know this, reading the Psalms, there's a lot of different postures
Mm-hmm.
or body movements and so forth. So
Yeah.
that would be some.
Yeah, and I ask because in some ways I think there's a mindset that you could have of, well, it's not what's on the outside
Sure.
that matters.
Yeah.
It's the heart posture.
Yeah.
But I think you can take that too far at times and
Yeah.
neglect an element of
Yeah.
your person
Yeah.
that could be helpful in your actual exalting or worshiping
Yeah.
of God.
Michelle knows this. For years and years, I've thought if I had my way, I would, with any type of a sanctuary, I would install kneelers. And I know for many of us, it brings back images of Roman Catholicism, Roman Catholic masses. But anytime I've been in a situation where I could fold one of those kneeling benches down
Mm-hmm.
and use it, I just always felt like it was appropriate for church. And I think that's one of those things that if our worship space had enough room for that, I think it would be overall helpful, even though, as I said a moment ago, I think for some people that would be that brings me back to times I don't want to remember. But for me, it brings me back to, that was always a good thing to kneel. And there was a certain reverence in that.
Yeah. How about other areas of your life outside of prayer, or like any like things that you think about in your day that are postures to exalt the Lord?
I think
practices, habits.
I think honestly, playing my cello is one of those that I was trying to think of too. The connection to the Psalms, especially the connection to the Psalms. I guess the musical instrument. I just adore music. I love music of all kinds, and I love the skill of musicians. I always have, and wish I was more skillful. When I watch young Landon Broker play the cello, it's like, whoa, if he stays with us, he is just going to be one of those. Or Emma Fernal. I'm just picking the cello because that's what I try to play, but any of these people. So I think playing the instrument for me is certainly one of those. Mm-hmm. And it's a good worship time for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I dabble in the guitar, and I know when I can get the guitar out and play and sing, they're important moments.
Yeah, you find it that way, right? You're just it's just different.
Yeah. Well, music in and of itself is a powerful tool.
Yep.
And I mean, it's fitting for the Psalms here.
Yeah, and where in our world, where do you and I ever get to? It's so different when you sit to play with the guitar. That's such a different segment of your life, and to me, it's very conducive to worship. Yeah.
Through this Psalm series, and just recently, some things I've been thinking about and listening to, I think there's more for me, I'll just say, to tap into on like a worship, exalting, spiritual connecting to and communing with God. That gets lost because life is hectic and busy sometimes. And routine. So just giving that some thought in my own life, and
good for you.
Those routines and those practices and those sometimes either daily rhythms or habits or postures can be kind of refocusing moments. So that's where that question was coming from.
Good.
Jumping down to verse 8 here, talking about some of the discipline, the avenger of the wrongdoings.
Yeah.
O Lord our God, you answered them. You were a forgiving God to them, but an avenger of their wrongdoings. So This question's coming from someone who's heard something, probably in the church or something like that, about forgiveness and punishment. The question is, would you say there's a distinction between discipline and punishment? I've heard people say that God punishes unbelievers but disciplines his children. You ever heard that?
I
have not.
I've heard similar thoughts. Yeah, and I think part of that is because of trying to distinguish between we're the children of God. So, but I mean, just purely from an Old Testament perspective, let's just take this reading, and I mentioned this on Sunday. So the answer to the question, first of all, is there's no difference. So my careful reading of this particular verse 8, as I said on Sunday, it is absolutely clear that avenger is the word that God chose to describe what he did to his people. And the list is long. I only gave one or two on Sunday, but the ways in which God punished the people that rebelled against him it's a long list.
Yeah.
So was that discipline? Yes. I think if you just track the meaning of those two words, you'd see some similarities. But according to this question, I'm going to say no, there's no difference. The New Living Translation, which I like, I don't know who I was talking to. It might have been Sue Reisdorf the other day, was asking me about some translations. And I said, I really like that New Living Translation a lot. I like what it's trying to do. I think it's fine. And if I remember correctly, it used the word punishment or punished for this verse 8, but a punisher of their wrongdoings or something like that. I don't have that memorized, but so here's what I would say about this. First of all, when I looked at this, God is fond of using parental images to describe how he handles us. And remember, God, when he's writing his revelation, he is purposefully writing it in a way that communicates to us. So he has to use vocabulary that can relate. And so he uses that imagery, parent with a child. That's especially clear in Hebrews chapter 12. And in Hebrews, where he says, don't despise the chastening of the Lord. Well, later on in that little section, that's a quote from Proverbs 3. So, whether you're Old Testament or New Testament, you have God describing how he treats his own, and that involves chastening, discipline, punishment, whatever word you want to use. So I'd have to say, no, this is the way he deals with us. And there's nothing wrong with the punishment imagery if you describe punishment as you're paying for a wrong done. I'm being punished. Well, it means I'm suffering from a wrong that I did. Because of a wrong that I did. The avenging word is really clear there. God is getting retribution because of wrongs done to him.
Right.
So
I just
Moses
think
violates him and God says, okay, here's what you get.
Here's your punishment.
Yeah.
I just think in the English, those two words, discipline and punishment, they have some baggage that come with them, good or bad.
Yeah.
And discipline often has a connotation of this is positive. This is even the word discipline has multiple meanings, and it's spiritual disciplines as an example. So discipline often has a sense of this is working towards something that's better, whereas punishment often just feels like the ping pong paddle, you're going to get whooped. And there's not a lot of redeeming value to it, but there could be. I wondered if that's where either you or anyone else is hearing the distinction between those two words potentially.
Well, I think from the times that I've heard parishioners talk like that, they want the distinction to be in place because they don't want God to be lashing out in anger at his children.
Mm.
You know, there's a sense in which now he treats us
Yeah.
differently. And yeah, I mean, I get that to a point.
Yeah, which gets us to another question here. Does God discipline differently before and after Christ? Like in the Old Testament, he's striking people dead for touching the ark,
Yeah.
swallowing up families out in the wilderness,
Yep.
the ground, Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
Don't touch the mountain.
Yeah.
Whereas in the New Testament,
Did you mention the ark one touching it?
Yeah.
You did that. Yeah.
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 So,
And in the New Testament,
it doesn't actually, the question doesn't say the New Testament, but the New Testament, as I was thinking about it, you got Ananias and Sapphira.
that's the first big one.
You've
where
got
it's
1 Corinthians 15, where people are getting sick and dying because they're.
Is that 15?
That's 12.
That's the
Not
that's
12.
the famous communion passage.
Yeah.
That you cite it all the time.
Oh, it's not 1 Corinthians 15. I was there for a funeral.
Yeah.
But yeah, the communion passage all the time. And so those are two examples.
Those are post-Christ.
Post-Christ.
I forget the wording of what you gave us.
Pre and post-Christ.
Post-Christ.
So, and then the other factor I was thinking about too, with the Old Testament, or to use Wayne Weissman's term, the Elder Testament, right?
It's not his term, but
someone else's
Christopher
term.
Wright. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christopher
Seitz. Sorry. Christopher Seitz.
Sorry, Christopher. We've got thousands of years of history and a few examples, whereas the New Testament, you've got 100 years, not even that, decades between Ananias and Sapphira, potentially in the church in Corinth, where a couple of examples are given.
That's true.
But we don't see or hear, at least about these, or at least they're not made public, or maybe we don't even attribute. And we've talked about this before, on Sunday mornings, where we may just chalk up an illness or a death to, it's just chance.
Yeah.
And
we don't know.
Ecclesiastes would say, sure, chance could be a part of that.
Yep.
But we probably don't consider God's hand in our lives in a negative way as often as we ought to. The possibility of it.
I remember distinctly in my early training for ministry, my first training institution, hearing a message. It was, I believe it was a memorial service, if I can remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the minister making a very specific reference to this person who died prematurely, did so because of the hand of God. I thought, wow, it was on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
But how would you ever make that judgment call? But it is. So your take, I think, on post Christ,
it would be that
after
there is
his
no
coming,
difference.
There is no difference. That there's still the possibility that when God needs to, because of his glory, because of his reputation, he will punish severely, to use that side, or to use the other term, he will chasten or discipline sharply.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think you're right about that. I think you have it in both sides, BC and
AD, ACE, BCE.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know them all. I think another example of that too, and it's just what we've talked about, and I think you mentioned Sunday too, is when we break God's law, we break ourselves on the law. So I'm thinking about in my own life, when I am disobedient and lacking faith and go my own way, I suffer the consequences of that in my own life. And that can be in a variety of areas. Or I think about the culture when it runs away from God and gets lost in, and just think about our culture today and all the ways that it's gone astray. And, not following God's rule for life. There's chaos and brokenness and
destruction. Life is stripped away.
Yeah, so much despair and pain
and I think that's one of the reasons why, like when you're thinking about Beyond Sunday, when you are putting the Psalms to work this week, part of it is leaning into the discipline as opposed to bucking against the discipline. I mean, that is part of it, to realize that God is treating you as a son or as a daughter, And so to know that he's an avenger of my wrongdoings, it does bring me back to what I said on Sunday, that there's so much stability knowing that there are rules in place. I know exactly how it's going to go for me when. That's the way it was with me growing up. There was no uncertainty about how things were. The rules were clear, and I knew that my parents were going to be very consistent with the way in which discipline and praise occurred.
Yeah.
So there's stability. You were raised the same way. I mean, I know your parents, and so we're both fortunate that we grow up in that stability. And I think what you're seeing in the Psalm is, and this is why I think the Psalms, it's sad that they don't get preached much, because they are so filled with theology. In this case, look at how God is being described. He's a forgiving God. That should make me be filled with praise today. Early this morning, to be able to say, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and to know that he's going to do that, that's tremendous impetus for praise. But then to move, but he's an avenger of their wrongdoings, ought to also, as a worshiper, say, all right, I need to gladly submit to the kingship, the exalted Christ, because if I don't, he's an avenger. So all of that, all of his holiness in this, it's repeated 2 or 3 times in this Psalm, right? So holy is he, verse 3, and then where's the other? I thought there were 3. And then verse 5, and then finally verse 9. So there's 3 different places, 3, 5, and 9, where God's holiness is there. And so I should be living in light of the fact that, yeah, he's my God. I need to gladly submit to his rules in his kingdom, experience all the good life in his kingdom. And the Psalms are great for that. I mean, I hope they allow you to do that, to give your praise, and then to just accept that position that he has, and find that balance that this Psalm is the mood here in this Psalm is, there's a lot of praise in it. There's a lot of celebration, but there's also fear. So find that balance of, we're dealing with an awesome, awesome God.
Yeah. I was just going to draw attention to that word, awesome, in its fullest definition.
Yeah. Not the way I used to think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you. I'm out of questions for today.
Good. Excellent.
But you're welcome to send questions in when you have them to podcast@cbcmj.com.
Excellent.
We're in the Psalm series, going to Psalm 100 next week.
Famous Psalm. We're outdoors for the picnic. We're at the Hershey Farm.
All right.
Hershey's Farm. It's going to be great.
Looking forward to that. Should be a good Sunday.
Yeah. Good weather.
I hope to stay dry this week, because it's rain every day. It feels like
next couple of days.
Is the weather on Sunday looking okay?
I haven't seen it.
Me neither. Do we cross our fingers here? Or?
You can. I usually do it and just say, theologically speaking.
Yeah, that's the joke.
Just to cover it.
That's the joke. All right, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you hopefully outside on Sunday. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode. And remember, our Sunday sermons are meant to lead us to a life of worship beyond Sunday.